edit the crappy bits out.
So I guess just tell us a little bit about this collection of work, Colours of a Day, to start off with,
Okay.
and how this body of work relates to each other, and it's a fairly recent body of work, isn't it? So
Yeah.
how this kind of came about, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I live in a place where I sort of observe the landscape and the sky and the changing seasons, the changing light during the day, and so I've been observing that for years, really, since I've lived in this place. And I suppose I've been drawing it and painting it without really consciously understanding what it is I'm observing. And I think I kind of reached this place where there was a bit of a revelation about the fact that this was to do with time as well, and marking time or recording time. And actually that went back to a lot of work that I did many years ago, which was based on kind of sea and sky cloud drawings, where I would divide the paper into sections and then do a drawing and then move quickly to another drawing. And so I was kind of recording the movement of the clouds in the sky or the waves in the sea, and I was doing that on one sheet of paper. So there's always, I think, been this kind of element of recording time somehow, and movement and change, that I've been interested in. And that's the thing I'm most interested in with the landscape, I think, not just creating a still picture of something. I want to record the sort of dynamism and the energy of the physical world, I suppose. And I did these blocks came about, I work on paper, so these are pastels on paper, but to start with, before I mount them on the blocks. But I was recording and thinking about sunrises and sunsets, because I look at those every day. I'm sort of lucky enough to live somewhere I can see the sunrises and the sunsets every day. And so I started thinking about how I could create those as a series. And so these, in a sense, could either be sunrise or a sunset, because depending on which way round you look at them, this one would be the sunrise if it's this way round, because it's sort of darker and becoming lighter and lighter as that. It's quite a short period of time actually, a sunrise, it doesn't last that long. So that would be that way around, but you could also look at it the other way around and look at it as a sunset, from this one through here to the sort of darkness at the end of the day. So it's a kind of, it's not one specific sunrise or sunset that I've observed, it's an accumulation of all these sunrises and sunsets I've seen over the years, and perhaps some of the colours have, stuck more than others. And then that led me to thinking about how I could record a day through using colour, because colours are a massive part of the work that I do. I am quite, I suppose, obsessed by how, what colour can do, how you can mix different colours. I love mixing colours. And so I was thinking about how I could create a sort of day, or the recording of a day through colour. So that became the smaller square canvases that are on the walls here. So we could go and have a look at a couple of those. This one is called Colours of the Day Noon, because this is like the height of the day. Quite often I find the beginning and the end of the day are the most interesting parts of the day, and that's quite common, I think, in artists, poets, creative people maybe, that there's a lot happening, and the changes are happening quite quickly. And sometimes the middle of the day feels like almost like trying to pass time, till something more interesting happens. But because I did this series of paintings, I was able to look at noon, which is probably in some ways the most, the most boring time of the day, on Sundays anyway, when the sun is just high in the sky, and the kind of day I was thinking about was just a clear blue sky, bright sunshine, and it's just there shining, and I just really kind of enjoyed painting this painting to make the noon seem more, I don't know, just more of an interesting time of the day.
No, I just wanted to ask you about the scale of these.
Yeah.
So these are obviously much, they're bigger than your little blocks, but they don't seem like full paintings.
Yeah.
So do you kind of see them as studies almost, or a series of paintings that you would display together? Because we've obviously decided to display them as like individual pieces, but how do you view them as like a kind of body of work?
Well, I did paint them all together, so I had 7 paintings lined up together on the wall of my studio, and I liked the idea of 7. I don't know, there's something about the number 7 that I find really satisfying. It's kind of my favourite number, I don't know why, but it's just a good number of paintings to mark. I thought that then there would be 2 hours between each painting, so it started off as being 6 a.m, then 8 a.m, 10 a.m, then you got midday, and then 2, 4 and 6, so there was a kind of nice, you know, completeness to that, being from 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening, so almost, I mean, I guess that's like equinox, isn't it, you know?
Yeah.
And I did paint, so I did paint them all together because I wanted to sort of create this idea of progression from one to the other. But when I'm thinking about, I mean, I'm very happy that they've been displayed and hung separately, because I think they kind of stand alone as little paintings anyway. For me, there was something about that, like needing to create them together in order to get them to relate to each other as well, and somehow when you've got paintings next to each other, you have to think about how that relates to the one that's next to it and beside it, you know, and it sort of challenges you as an artist, I think, aesthetically as well, to have to think about not making them all look too much the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really helpful for me, so that each one kind of marked that particular time of the day quite definitively, you know, so they didn't all just become one, you know, blended thing of all looking the same.
And they kind of, you've talked about the importance of kind of quietness, and thinking about kind of appreciating small moments like within life, and I think these paintings in particular like kind of resonate those feelings of kind of appreciating kind of smaller moments, smaller things, instead of thinking about the world as such a massive place, but it's, you know, like you said, just appreciating, you know that moment of 12 o'clock and what it says, and just appreciating that rather than kind of all the other busyness that's going on in the world. Although your paintings are really bright and colourful and there's a lot going on, there is also, we've spoken about this kind of sense of calm within them, which I think you've talked about, kind of wanting to get across that sense of calm.
Yeah, that sort of meditative quality, I suppose, which, you know, I'm glad that you've touched on that, because I think I experienced both of these sort of extremes of loving bright colours, lots of activity, lots of stimulation. You know, I get really excited by that. I get excited by kind of awesome things and wondrous things, but I also really do need that kind of retreat away from things, quietness, and I think a lot of us are the same, you know. I think most of us as human beings are probably quite similar, that we have, maybe in different proportions, but everybody needs some stillness in their lives, I think. And so I think, you know, what I've done with these paintings is focus on a moment, or you know, it might be a very small moment, or it might be a slightly longer moment, but they're all moments, and then you kind of put them together to create bigger moments. So I mean, in some ways you could enjoy 12 o'clock as being like on the dot of 12 o'clock, or you could think of it as being the hour leading up to and the hour after it, you know, so it doesn't have to be just one tiny speck of time, or it could be, if you want it to be.
And kind of that cycle of all 12, you know, that recurring 12 o'clock that repeats kind of endlessly. Because you've talked about that cycle feeling. Someone the other day picked up about those circles within your painting that they see really strongly, and you said about that kind of cycle of life, cycle of the day, that kind of reoccurrence of 12 o'clock. You recognise that as 12 o'clock because we've all been there so many times. Like 12 and then 12 again.
And I think these things can pass us by as well. You know, you can think like every day, you know, there's 12 o'clock every day, but actually sometimes we need to stop ourselves, don't we, and think, wow, there's 12 o'clock every single day. Maybe I could actually incorporate that into the rhythm of my day and stop at 12 o'clock and just stop and have a little, you know, few moments of stillness or thoughtfulness in my day. You know, not just keep going and keep going and keep going, just have that peacefulness. And I think that's partly what the 12 o'clock thing was about for me, you know, was this kind of recognizing that there's lots going on in you know, sunrise and then a sunset, and there's not much going on in that middle part of the day, but actually that is really precious, you know, to have that kind of settled stillness in the middle part of the day where your breath can be longer and you can just sort of calm down a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
So, you know, I think,
Sorry, what about your larger paintings?
Yeah, so, I mean, I like working in different sizes. I don't know whether that's just, it keeps me interested or what, but I love the sort of contrast, or the, what's the word for it? Extremes of, you know, working really small and then working really big. I think there's something quite interesting about being able to do both, and I need to do both. I love, because in a way I suppose it's like focusing on the, you know, macro and the micro in a way, isn't it? And also with the big paintings, it gives me an opportunity to be a bit more gestural, like physical, you know, in the actual painting process. So, you know, I can use bigger brushstrokes, and you know, I need that movement myself. I need to be able to move like that.
And these ones aren't specifically titled colours of the day, are they?
No.
They're titled. So are they looking at kind of something different, or kind of trying to combine all times of the day, or are they looking at kind of a longer narrative than just a moment in a day?
Yeah, I think these are a more general sort of accumulation of images, impressions, memories, ideas about you know, changing light and colour in the landscape and what that represents. And so quite often when I'm working on these bigger pieces, they become more ambiguous, I suppose, and it starts to kind of become a bit more metaphorical. So, you know, I quite often give them slightly more metaphorical titles. There's also something about, particularly with this painting, which is called The Light Shines Through. I can't even remember the title of my own work. I think that's what it's called. But this particular painting is kind of about that. I don't know if everybody gets this feeling or not, but there's this feeling of when you're looking towards the horizon, or you're looking out to the sky, or you're looking beyond, there's always this feeling of something being beyond that you're perhaps, I don't know, yearning for, or it's hope, or it's longing, or I don't know what it is, but there's this feeling of something over there, you know, that you kind of want to reach. And so this painting with this kind of big area of light in the middle kind of alludes to that idea of looking where the light is coming from, like the source of light. And then obviously it kind of relates to the sunrises and sunsets that I've put in those small blocks at the beginning, because the colours were very much related to sunsets. In these, there were two, there's one in the window and this one. which are using those colours that I was observing at a particular time of the year, where there was a lot of, you know, this kind of deep reddy pink and peach and purples. And then the marks that I was making were kind of, I just enjoyed the marks, enjoyed making those marks, and enjoyed the freedom of making those marks and how the paint works as well. I quite like leaving areas, you know, by accident sometimes, and then so there's a lot of kind of accidental stuff, but there's a lot of manipulation as well going on in there.
Yeah, and you were interested in how we'd hung the smaller pieces with the bigger pieces. Has that made you think of anything that you want to kind of take forward into your studio practice, like after this, like kind of combining any of the two of them? Because is this the first time that you've displayed these smaller pieces on those blocks?
Yeah.
Because we really enjoyed them as kind of almost sculptural pieces themselves. So has it made you think about any new pieces that you're kind of maybe going to continue on from there?
Well, it's definitely made me aware of how important it is to keep doing these different sizes of work. So, you know, in the past I've kind of thought, oh, come on, Ali, you know, you need to settle on one thing, you know, you need to just like, are you going to do big paintings or are you going to do small paintings? What are you going to do? And I think, why do I need to do that? You know, this is really kind of affirmed for me that is an important aspect of what I do, is to create tiny things and big things and to have them together as a whole, because it is more of an illustration of, you know, how I'm viewing the world. And you know, it doesn't all have to be about the big picture, it can be about the tiny details sometimes as well, and that those two things can live alongside each other. These little blocks are something that I've done really very recently this year, because I've been trying to work out a way to, because I love working in pastels, you know, they are an amazing medium, and I've been trying to work out a way of displaying them without having to put them behind glass and to frame them. You know, there's all sorts of issues around that really bothered me. You know, expense, the effect it has, all sorts of things really, and I want them to be right there, even though it's a bit risky, because obviously I've got to fix them quite a lot, because otherwise they're going to smudge. But you know, however much you fix them, you're still going to get a little bit of possible smudging. So that it is a bit risky having them like that. But I just feel as though they, you know, on the blocks, it gives them a bit of presence. They kind of become more of a three-dimensional object. So I'm going to keep working like that, because it's so much kind of easier than if I had to frame all these little blocks. It would cost me an absolute fortune for one thing, and then I'd have all this glass, you know, to store as well. So from a practical point of view, it's just a much better way of doing it, and I think it means you can also have them hanging next to each other, quite close to each other, so that they relate to each other as a series. Because a lot of I've done a lot of series now, and that again taps into this idea of recording time and recording a period of time. So I quite often will have a sheet of paper that I cut into 10cm squares, and then I will work from one to the other, to the other, to the other quite quickly, as if I'm almost like making a like a film animation strip or something. That's kind of what's going on in my head a little bit, is like, this is a frame, and then that's the next frame, and then that's the next frame. And yeah, size, I'm just going to keep going, I think, with these different sizes. I think it's really opened my eyes to how well it works, having them hung like this, being really successful.